I was doing my final walkthrough of the Memphis Kroger I had managed for 9 years. 11:45 on a Monday night. I noticed the last customer was still in aisle 7. He had been standing in the same spot for the past 25 minutes. He had an empty basket. He was not looking at any product. The 5-minute closing announcement had played twice over the PA. He had not moved. I'm Faye, 38, store manager at the Kroger on Union Avenue. 3 blocks from Sun Studio, 10 minutes from Beale Street if you take Madison. I mean, y'all grew up in Memphis. You measure addresses by music. Mondays were my closing shift nights. The store closed at midnight, the last customer was supposed to be out by 11:50, and I would do the back office cash up between 11:55 and 12:15 before locking up. I had done this routine almost every Monday for 9 years. Same closing playlist on my phone. Same Grizzlies post-game on AM radio if the season was on. Same sweet tea on the counter. From the Central Barbecue takeout my husband sometimes dropped off. The customer in aisle 7 was a man in his mid-30s, gray jacket, baseball cap. The 5-minute closing announcement had run at 11:40. The 2-minute announcement had run at 11:43. Both had been over the PA system that broadcast through aisle speakers. He had heard them. He had not moved. I walked toward aisle 7. The aisle is the soup and canned goods row. He was at the middle of the aisle facing the shelf, basket on the floor next to him, empty. He turned his head when I came around the end cap. He smiled. He said, very politely, that he was just deciding which brand of broth to buy. I told him the store was closing in 12 minutes. He nodded. He picked up a can of broth. He put it in the basket. He kept standing there. I walked back toward the front of the store. Honestly, my hands were already cold by the time I reached the registers. I had been managing this store 9 years. The thing is, I had never felt the specific kind of wrong that I was feeling about the man in aisle 7. I picked up the wall-mounted intercom phone next to the front register and pressed the back office line. My assistant manager, Pete, was in the back doing the dairy delivery check. I told him there was a customer still in the store who I did not feel right about. I told him to lock the back office door from the inside, not open it until I said it was clear, to keep his cell phone on the desk, pointed at the door, for video. Pete confirmed. I went back to the front register. I started the cash pull on the front lane. The man with the broth came up the aisle toward the registers. He set the basket on the conveyor belt. The single can of broth. He pulled out his wallet. He pulled out, instead of a credit card, a folding knife. He pointed at the cash drawer, he said, calmly, to open it. I opened it. I had been trained on this exact moment for 9 years. Kroger Corporate's protocol is comply with visible cash only. Do not engage, do not resist, hit the silent alarm under the counter. The silent alarm is on the underside of the counter at the cashier's right hand. It pings Memphis PD dispatch directly through a hardwired line that has been there since 2007. I pressed the alarm. I took the top tray out of the cash drawer with my left hand and slid it across the counter to him. He grabbed the tray. He started moving toward the door. I'm not going to detail every minute of what happened next, but the police walked me through it twice. I had also pressed, with my right hand, a separate intercom button on the wall behind me. The back office line. That button is supposed to silently broadcast the live audio of the register area into the back office. Pete heard everything. Pete had been listening on the speakerphone since I had first told him about the man. The man with the knife pushed the door open with his shoulder. He started running across the parking lot. Memphis PD cruiser pulled in 7 seconds later from Union Avenue. The cruiser had been routed by the silent alarm. The officer saw the man with the cash tray. He intercepted at the lot exit. The man dropped the tray. He raised his hands. He was charged with aggravated robbery, criminal threats, and carrying a concealed weapon. He had 2 prior shoplifting convictions and 1 prior attempted robbery conviction from 4 years earlier. He had been out of state corrections 18 months. He was held without bond. 5 years state prison plus a lifetime ban from any corporate retail establishment in Tennessee. Memphis PD walked me through his prior record in a follow-up interview a week after the arrest. The 2 prior shoplifting convictions had each been at different Kroger locations in the metro area, different stores than mine. Both had been late-night incidents. Both had escalated when the closing staff had confronted him. Neither prior closing staff member had been physically harmed because corporate had each time complied with visible cash, although neither prior case had involved the production of a knife. The detective who outlined the case for me said the corporate-wide pattern was being added to quarterly training as a documented archetype. The pattern he named, stealth customer with prop basket who escalates to weapon at register. He told me, gently, that the pattern was nearly identical to one described in a 2022 Corporate Loss Prevention Safety Bulletin. The chain had circulated it to all stores, but it had not been required reading. I had not read it. The detective had pulled it for me. The bulletin had been 3 pages long. The $420 he had grabbed was recovered fully. Kroger Corporate gave me 3 weeks of paid leave and a transfer to a regional corporate office position I had wanted for 2 years. I took it. I do not do closing shifts anymore. My family installed 3 home cameras the weekend after. I started seeing a therapist. What I still carry is the broth. He had put a single can in the basket because he wanted to be holding the basket through the register, so the visual of him at the conveyor would not trigger a manager's pattern recognition alarm. The can had been a prop. The basket had been a prop. The minute-long delay in aisle 7, that had been him waiting for me to walk past to confirm I was alone. The corporate office I transferred to had me speak at the Spring Loss Prevention Summit, 4 months after my incident. I told the story in front of 300 regional store managers. The session was recorded and integrated into the corporate quarterly training video. I have not seen the final cut of the video. The corporate training director told me in a follow-up email that the video had been deployed across all Tennessee Kroger stores, plus a pilot rollout across Mississippi and Alabama. She told me that one specific element of my recounting, Pete on the open intercom listening to the encounter, had been highlighted in the video as a recommended dual coverage practice for any single staff after-hours operations. I have not asked whether the training has prevented any incidents. The director told me, when I asked once about whether they were tracking efficacy, that the metric is the incidents that did not happen, which is, by definition, unmeasurable. I keep that phrase in my notes.
I'd been pushing my grocery cart across the Meijer parking lot in Indianapolis after late lab sessions for almost a year. The Thursday night, a man approached me. He asked where parking section H was. He gestured across the lot. While I turned to point, section H is on the far side of the store. A second man came up behind me. The first man reached for my keys. I was 25 then, a grad student in mechanical engineering at IUPUI, the Kelly Engineering Crossover Program. 2 years in, 1 to go. I had done a late grocery run. I had been at the university lab until 10. The Meijer was open until midnight. The thing is, I usually swung by the Culver's drive-thru on Washington Street after lab on Thursdays. But the line had been 20 minutes long that night. I had given up. I had filled the cart with 2 weeks of groceries, about $140. I was walking it to my car. My car was parked 7 rows out under a working light. The closer rows had been full when I arrived. Pacers had been playing a home game across town that night, honestly. The Meijer lot had been busier than usual until about 10:30, when the post-game traffic finally cleared. The man who asked about parking section H was in his late 20s, blue jacket, calm voice. He approached me from my front left, about 10 feet from my car. He pointed in a direction and asked, conversationally, where section H was. I had been at this Meijer dozens of times. I knew that section H is on the south side of the building, near the garden center entrance. I turned to point that direction. When I turned, the second man, who I had not seen because he had been walking parallel to me at the same speed for the last 15 seconds, came up on my front right. His hand went directly to the cart's child seat slot, where I had been carrying my car keys in my coat pocket. He had timed his approach to coincide with the moment I turned my head. The next part is hard to say, but the police walked me through it 3 times. I had not consciously registered the second man, but my body had registered him. There had been a peripheral movement on my right side that I had unconsciously logged. As I turned my head back from pointing, I shoved the cart laterally, sideways, hard. between the first man and the second man. The cart slammed into the first man's hip. The second man, whose hand was already in my coat pocket, stumbled to maintain his grip on the cart frame. I pressed the panic button on my key fob. The car alarm started. Horn flash, headlight flash, the way they do. The lot was empty except for the three of us. The alarm carried across the lot. The Meyer night shift loss prevention officer, I learned later her name was Sergeant Anders, came out the storefront at a run. She had been at the front lobby on routine perimeter watch when the alarm carried. She was on her radio while she ran, and within 12 seconds she had Indianapolis Metro PD on the way. The two men, hearing the radio call and seeing Anders coming, dropped the cart and ran toward the south side of the lot. Anders pursued on foot to the row, called out a description on her radio. Indianapolis Metro PD arrived in 3 minutes. Both men were caught at the lot's south exit by a cruiser that had been driving past on the cross street and had heard the Anders broadcast on the precinct shared channel. The primary suspect had a prior conviction from 2022 for attempted carjacking. The secondary had a prior misdemeanor for grand theft auto. Both were charged with felony attempted robbery, criminal conspiracy, and carrying a concealed weapon. The primary had a folding knife in his back pocket. Convicted at trial 7 months later. 9 years state for the primary, 6 years state for the secondary, plus a lifetime ban from any Indianapolis Metro parking lot for both. The police investigation also revealed something. The two men had been operating the same scheme at 3 other Indianapolis area grocery store parking lots in the prior 2 months. They had successfully run the routine twice. Both prior victims had been physically uninjured, but had been robbed of car and groceries. The pattern was, one approaches with a directional question. The other approaches from behind during the head turn. The second one extracts keys. They drive the victim's car off the lot before the victim has registered the second man's presence. The DA's office disclosed during pre-trial something. The two suspects had used 3 different vehicles across the 4-incident pattern, 2 of them rental cars. One, a vehicle registered to a third party who had not known about its use. The DA said the use of multiple vehicles across the pattern indicated organized planning rather than opportunistic crime. Both suspects had also been carrying burner phones at the time of arrest. The phones had contained text message exchanges between the two of them discussing prior victims by initials and times. The text history extended back almost a year. The DA's office told me the texts had been entered as evidence of criminal conspiracy. They would not be released to me to read in full. Some of the content was unredacted, in a way that the Victim Services Office had recommended against my reading. The Meyer rolled out an updated parking lot patrol schedule that month. The loss prevention budget was doubled for the next quarter. Sergeant Anders received a corporate commendation. I switched to grocery delivery within the week, Instacart and the store's own pickup service. I have not pushed a cart across a parking lot at night since. I had 7 months of therapy. I replaced my car's stock alarm with a LoJack system. The Indianapolis Metro PD investigator told me something during the second statement-taking interview. The two suspects had a third accomplice. They had been working with him on prior incidents. He had not been at my parking lot, a getaway driver in a separate car. The third accomplice was identified during the phone record subpoena and was arrested 2 weeks after the trial concluded. He was charged with criminal conspiracy and accessory after the fact. He pleaded to 4 years state. The full pattern was now documented. A 3-person operation with the primary doing the direction asking, the secondary doing the key extraction, and the tertiary running the getaway car for the stolen vehicle. What I think about every time is the cart shove. I had not decided to do it. The peripheral movement on my right had registered without my realizing it. My body had moved the cart before my brain had caught up. The two men had been counting on the unconscious blind spot. The moment when somebody turns their head to be helpful, to extract the keys without resistance. The cart shove had only worked because there had been 7 rows between my car and the cart return. The gap had given me room to lateral pivot. If I had been parked closer to the cart return, the cart would have hit the cart return first. My key extraction would have completed before the alarm had finished its first cycle. Friday, midnight, back-of-store perimeter walk at the Giant Eagle in Cleveland. 62 minutes into my 8-hour overnight security round, 3 individuals standing near the loading dock employee entrance when I came around the corner of the building. They had been waiting for me to come around. They had timed the round. I'm Logan, 44, contracted security guard. The Giant Eagle store hires through a third-party security firm. I had been with that contract for 12 years. 12 years on the same loading dock circuit. You stop counting the walks. The store ran 24 hours, but the back-of-store loading dock entrance was supposed to be unattended after 11 p.m., except during scheduled deliveries. I did a perimeter walk every hour on the hour, starting at 11. The midnight walk was the second of my shift. Honestly, my Friday night routine had been the same for a decade. Leave the house at 10:50. I-90 west to the store. Buckeyes game muted on the car radio if it was a fall Saturday. Rerun. In uniform by 11. The 3 individuals at the loading dock were in their 20s, dark clothing, 2 of them with their hands inside their jacket pockets. They were positioned in a way I had been trained to read as deliberate. 1 at the rear of the loading dock platform, 1 at the side of the employee entrance, 1 at the corner of the building. They had separated the entry and exit geometry. Before I describe what came after, I should say the post-incident debrief with the security contractor walked me through every decision. I did not approach. I stopped at the corner, about 30 feet from the closest individual, and I keyed my radio. I gave my location and the description of the 3 individuals to my supervisor and to Cleveland PD Dispatch simultaneously. Since the security firm has a hard-wired line, the individual at the corner of the building turned and started walking toward me. The other 2 also began moving. They were closing the distance toward where I was. I did not turn my back. I stepped backward toward the lit area of the loading dock perimeter. The bay door at loading dock 3 had a working sodium lamp above it that cast a bright circle on the asphalt. I stepped into the circle. The 3 individuals stopped at the edge of the circle. They had been counting on darkness. The one in front of me said very calmly that he had locked his keys in his car and needed help. I asked him where his car was. He pointed at the customer lot, which is across the street from the loading dock. The customer lot is fully visible from the lot itself, not from where we were. There was no way he could have walked around the back of the building to ask for help. The store has a customer service desk inside that is 24 hours. I told him to go to the customer service desk. He took another step toward me. I deployed my CS spray. The spray hit him directly in the face. The other 2 rushed forward. I had already started moving toward loading dock 3, which has an automated bay door I can trigger with my radio. The bay door started rolling up. I stepped under it. The bay door rolled down behind me with the 3 individuals still on the lit side of the asphalt. I tripped going under. I fell on my right side. I cracked 2 ribs and bruised the muscles around them. I kept the radio in my hand. Cleveland PD was on the way. The 3 suspects, with the primary disabled by spray, attempted to scale the loading dock concrete wall. They did not make it before 3 cruisers arrived from 3 directions. All 3 were charged with criminal trespass, criminal conspiracy, attempted robbery, and assault on a security professional. 2 of the 3 had prior convictions for similar parking lot targeting incidents at other Cleveland area grocery stores. The primary had a prior aggravated robbery from 2021. He had been out of state prison for 14 months. The DA stacked the charges into a single indictment. 12 years state for the primary, 7 years for the second, 5 years for the third, plus a lifetime ban from any retail store premises in Cuyahoga County for all 3. I had 5 weeks of rib recovery and a contractor's workers' comp payment that covered medical. My family and I relocated within Cleveland Metro to a quieter neighborhood. Not because of safety risk. The loading dock incident had made me unable to sleep in our apartment. Our apartment had been across the street from a 24-hour CVS that had also had multiple parking lot incidents. We moved to a single-family rental in a neighborhood with number 24-hour retail. The follow-up investigation by Cleveland PD also revealed a pattern. The 3 suspects had been operating a coordinated pattern at 5 different Cleveland area grocery store loading docks over the prior 3 months. They had successfully entered 2 of those loading dock areas, both during scheduled delivery windows when an employee had propped the bay door. They had stolen approximately $1,400 of food product across the two entries. The third Cleveland area attempt had been at a smaller independent grocery. The security camera had captured them clearly, and the store had filed a report. But no arrests had been made. My Giant Eagle attempt would have been their fourth target. The DA's pattern charging at indictment included evidence from all 5 locations. 3 documented prior visits where they had been observed, but no entry had been attempted. Plus the 2 successful entries. Plus my attempted robbery night. The 5-location pattern bumped the charges from misdemeanor trespass to felony conspiracy, plus aggravated attempted robbery. Giant Eagle installed motion LED lighting at every loading dock at all 23 Cleveland area locations. The security contractor updated the perimeter walk protocol to include radio check-in at every corner of the building. What won't leave my head is the corner. They had been positioned at the corner to time my arrival. They had been listening for the radio key-up that I do at each corner during a round. The radio key-up had given them my position by corner. After my incident, the contractor changed the protocol to silent check-in via tablet. No audio cue. I have been told the change has prevented at least 4 similar attempts at other contracted Cleveland sites in the year since. The contractor also rolled out a coordinated training session for all Cleveland area security personnel about loading dock corner pattern timing. The session was attended by approximately 140 contractor guards across the metro. The trainer used my case as one of 3 case studies. I attended the session as a guest. I sat in the back. I did not speak. The trainer did not name me. The 2 other case studies in the session were from Cincinnati and from Toledo, both of which had ended worse than mine. The trainer told the room something. The only reason mine had not ended worse was the radio key-up, that the contractor had just retired as a protocol element. The session ended with a Q&A. I did not ask any questions. I have not been at a Q&A since. I went back to the Giant Eagle once after the trial, daytime, in plain clothes, with my wife. We bought 2 bags of groceries and a coffee from the in-store cafe. I wanted to be in the building one more time without uniform on. I stood at the loading dock door from the inside for about 20 seconds before walking back out the front. My wife waited at the registers. She did not ask me about it. She has not asked me about it since. The Giant Eagle store manager, a woman named Janelle, who had been the manager during my 12 years, saw me from the customer service desk. She did not say anything. She nodded at me. I nodded back. My wife and I drove home in silence for the first 15 minutes. She turned on the radio. We did not talk about it. We have not talked about it. The next month, I started seeing a different therapist who specialized in workplace violence aftermath. He told me, 2 sessions in, that the visit to the store had been an act of completion that I had needed to do. He told me I could go back again if I wanted. I have not gone back.
It took me 14 months at the 24-hour Smith's Grocery in Salt Lake City to finally realize something. The man who walked aisle to aisle every Tuesday at 2 a.m. wasn't shopping. The Tuesday this happened, I was stocking the dairy aisle when I noticed him walking from aisle 6 toward my aisle 4, holding nothing in his hands. He had been in the store for 40 minutes. He had been walking aisle to aisle without buying anything. By the time he reached the dairy section, he was looking directly at me. I'll call myself May, 31, overnight stalker, and I'd been at Smith's 4 years on the 12 to 8 shift. I mean, 4 years of the same fluorescent overnight, same dock receiving routine, same in and out on State Street I would stop at before clocking in if the line wasn't too long. The store ran 24 hours. The third shift traffic was usually 3 or 4 customers an hour. Late night insomniacs, second shift workers buying for tomorrow's lunch, road trippers stopping for snacks on the way up to Park City. I knew the rhythm. Honestly, my rhythm was tuned to the Wasatch Front view through the front windows. Sunrise hits the canyon walls a little after 6:15 most mornings. I usually finished my last pallet about 10 minutes before that. The customer who had been in the store 40 minutes was a man, mid-30s, gray hoodie, hands at his sides. He had walked aisle 6 to aisle 5 to aisle 4 in a pattern that anyone working overnight retail recognizes. That is not a person doing shopping. That is a person searching. I had a stocking cart between me and the dairy display. My cart was a 4-shelf rolling cart, loaded with sealed milk jugs and a heavy roll of price labels on the top shelf. I had a portable radio clipped to my hip. The on-call night manager, Jeff, was at the front of the store at the register area, about 12 aisle widths away. The customer came around the end cap into aisle 4. He stopped about 10 feet from me. He said, very calmly, that I was coming with him. What comes next is something I share lightly only with my therapist, but the trial walked through every second of it. I did not respond. I picked up my portable radio with my left hand and keyed it to broadcast, pressed the talk button and left it open so the on-call manager could hear everything. I did not announce on the radio. I just keyed it. The man stepped forward. He was now 5 feet from me. His right hand came out of the hoodie pocket. He was holding a folding knife. I rotated my stocking cart so the long edge was between me and him, a 4-foot barrier of milk jugs and labels. I screamed. The scream carried. Jeff on the front register heard it through the radio first, then through the air a half-second later. He came down aisle 4 at a run. A second late-night customer had been in the bakery section. A man in his 60s, Mr. Patel. I had seen him 100 times across 4 years. He came around the corner of aisle 4 from the opposite end. The man with the knife saw 2 people closing in. He lunged at me anyway. He came over the cart. He grabbed my right arm. He pulled me toward him. The knife came up. I shoved against him with both hands. I cracked the bottom edge of the price label roll against his collarbone. Mr. Patel reached us first. He tackled the man from the side. The knife went onto the floor. Jeff arrived 2 seconds later. Together, they held the suspect down. I sat on the floor with my back against the dairy cooler. My right arm was bent at an angle that should not have been possible. Mr. Patel called 911. Jeff applied direct pressure to the cut on my right forearm, where the knife had grazed me during the lunge. Salt Lake City PD arrived in 5 minutes. They detained the man on the floor. The knife was entered into evidence. The store's overnight camera system had captured every step of the encounter. The footage was used at trial. The man's record came back to me later from the prosecutor's office. 19 prior arrests, including 4 prior retail violence incidents across Utah, Nevada, and Idaho. He was on a prior protective order from a 2023 case for stalking a different retail worker in Utah County, a Smith's location off Redwood Road in West Valley. The thing is, 6 miles from the store I was working. A case that had ended in a plea, but it had not lifted the protective order, which had remained active. He was charged with felony aggravated assault, attempted kidnapping, criminal threats, carrying a concealed weapon, and violation of pre-existing protective order. The DA's office stacked all 5 charges. He was convicted by a jury 11 months later. 11 years state prison, plus 5 years supervised release, plus a lifetime ban from retail employment in any state, plus GPS monitoring on release. I had a hairline fracture of my right ulna and a cracked rib on my right side. 7 weeks of physical therapy, cast for 6 weeks, 12 months of weekly therapy, plus 6 months of EMDR. I have a permanent shoulder issue from how my arm was twisted during the grab, limited range of motion that physical therapy could only partially restore. Smith settled my civil suit at $75,000 based on the inadequate after-hours staffing and the camera coverage gaps in the dairy aisle. I transferred to daytime restocker on a different shift. I sold my car because the prosecutor's office told me in discovery that my license plate had been in the suspect's notes app along with my work schedule. The car had been identifiable. I bought a different make. During discovery, the prosecutor's office walked me through the suspect's phone notes app. He had been keeping a tracking journal that included, beyond my work schedule and license plate, the names of 5 other Smith's overnight stalkers across 3 different Salt Lake City locations. Each entry had work schedules, vehicle descriptions, license plates, and what aisle each of those stalkers was assigned to overnight. 2 of the 5 other stalkers had been at the Smiths I worked at. 3 had been at 2 other locations. None of those 5 other women had been notified by me. The Smiths regional HR office contacted each of them within a month of his arrest. 4 of the 5 resigned from overnight shifts within the next 2 months. The fifth was already on day shift and did not need to change. Smith's regional HR added an after-hours staffing pattern review. Across all 26 Salt Lake City metro locations, the quarter after my case, the review found something. 14 of the 26 locations had been running single stalker overnight rotations. That did not include adjacent aisle radio check-ins. All 14 were converted to paired stalker rotations or to in-store loss prevention paired coverage protocols by the end of the year. Mr. Patel and I send Christmas cards now. He told me at the sentencing hearing why he had been in the bakery section. His wife had a midnight craving for the cinnamon twist pastries, and he had run out to grab one. He had come to the dairy aisle because he had heard a scream. He had not thought twice. He had a Marine background from before retirement. He had reacted on training that was 30 years old. What hasn't faded is that the suspect had been in the store 40 minutes before he reached the dairy aisle. He had been searching for me. The store's camera review showed he had also been in the store the prior Tuesday, at the same hour, walking the same aisle sequence. But he had left before reaching dairy because 3 other customers had come in. The store's records showed 7 prior late-night visits. He had been calibrating. The 4th Tuesday visit had been the one where the store had been empty enough for him to act.